How to make an easy macrame belt tutorial and pattern is a groovy retro 70s inspired craft, and you can knot your retro belt with beads to tie around your waist or through the belt loops of your hip hugger bell-bottom jeans if you want to. I recommend using a cord that is not slick. The first cord I got home had a slick surface and the knots came untied. It was frustrating. So this has a little more of a string texture. I'm going to use pony beads, and there are lots of other kinds of beads, small wooden ones or something if you would prefer that look, which is more similar to what I have here. These are actually pony beads as well. This is one I made a few years ago, and this is the pattern that we're going to make. You're going to start by measuring your waist. I recommend going through your belt loops or through your jeans to get an accurate measurement of how long this belt needs to be. So you'll take that measurement, and I take off 2 inches in order for there to be space to tie these two ends together like this. So I'm taking out about 2 inches here so that I can tie a knot at the ends of the belt. Then I'm going to add 1 foot to the end of each to make these tassels. So it's going to be your waist measurement minus 2 inches plus 2 feet, 24 inches. All right, so my belt measurement was, I don't even remember now. I'm going to make another one similar to it. So I'm going to make my belt should have been 34 inches, so I'm taking off 2 to make it 32 plus 24 more inches, which is going to be 56 inches long altogether. When we cut our string for the macrame, we triple the length that we want. So I'm going to measure this 3 times as long as that 56-inch measurement. So I'm going to cut that string at 9 of these lengths is what I need, and we're going to end up folding that in half when we're done. So I'm just going to take that string and measure . Okay, so there's the length that I need, and before I cut this, I'm going to wrap that place in tape. I'm going to make this as tight as I can. There's 2 reasons for this. So the 2 reasons are it's going to keep it from unraveling, and it's also going to make it possible for me to string some beads onto the string without it unraveling. So I've wrapped that tape around there, and I'm going to cut right in the center of that taped area, and it makes it kind of like the end of a shoestring. So I've done that on both ends of my string, and then this is going to be cut in, or excuse me, then I'm going to double this up . And this will be 2 strings for me to use in my macrame. So I need 8 strings, so I've made 4 of these lengths and then doubled them in half. So I tied all 8 strings together at the top with an overhand knot about 12 inches from the end of the strings. So they're all together. Tighten that up, and then I use some clamps to clamp it to this board. That's one way to do it. So this is an old breadboard out of a cupboard that I use for drawing and crafting. And then I lay all 8 of the strings out, and I wrap the string up around my hand. I'll show you how in just a minute. So each one of these is in a little bundle. So I'm not working with long strings. Okay, so in essence we can number these. I'm going to be putting on some beads, and I'm using these little pony beads. I think they're very pretty. kind of almost candy looking colors. On the one I made earlier, I used all brown pony beads. You could use small brown wooden beads too, but I couldn't find any that had large enough holes. So that's why I used the pony beads. And I'm going to probably give this one to a granddaughter, and I thought she might like these colors. They're kind of sherbet colors or pastel colors. They're very, very nice muted colors. So I told you on the end of the string I'd put tape, which made it kind of like a shoestring, and it makes it very easy to string the beads. And I'm not going to do it in any particular order of colors or anything, but because of the type A, I guess that I am, I don't know, I have at least taken out one of each color of the beads. So they're not in any particular order, but I know that I'm getting one of each color. The tape makes it very easy for them to fit through the holes of the pony beads, and it doesn't get all frayed. Doesn't unravel. Putting about 30 or 35 beads on each of these two strings. Push those down the string. Then I'm going to take the end of the string, and this is how I made those little bundles of string. I just wrapped it around my hand, and then used a little hair rubber band to hold it in this bundle. I find these little hair rubber bands to be handy in my crafting. Okay. All right, I'm going to show you the 2 knots that we need for this craft. And I'm going to show you on these center strings just as an example. The first knot that we're going to need is called a half hitch. And it's like one string just hitches itself around the other. So I'm going to take whichever string that I will tell you later which string to use, but I'm going to take this string and I'm going to hitch it around this string. So I make an L, and then I loop around the back string, and I bring it around and bring this up, and this has now hitched itself around this other string. That is a half hitch. Okay, and the other knot that I'd like you to see is something we're going to be doing in the center of our strings fairly often, and this is called a square knot. And I'm going to take, in our case, I'm going to be using these outer 2 yarns, outer 2 strings to make this knot. I'm going to make the L with this outer cord. Then I'm going to take this cord and I'm going to go over it, and this one has gone over the center 2 cords. This one's going to go under, so it's going to go over the one that made the L, and then under those 2, and it's going to tie around the 2 cords. Okay, and then we're going to repeat it, except this cord, instead of going over, is now going to go under, and then over this cord. This one is going to go over these 2 cords and then under this one. And this is called a square knot. You'll know it's correct if you can see that little loop that you've made there. So I'm going to coach you through that as we go. And I've also got a handout on my website that will show you this pattern. Okay, so I have my bead cords on string number 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's cord number 8. So the beads are on string number 3 and number 7. Number 1 is going to be a floater cord that's going to go across the strings, and we're going to tie a half hitch knot around this. Each one of these strings will tie a half hitch knot around this. Before I do that, I'm going to push one bead from each string up into the top part of that area for decoration. And then I'm going to push my beads down. They're kind of clumsy as I'm tying knots, so sorry about that. But that's the way it is. Okay, so this number 1 cord is going to float across here, and we're going to tie a half hitch around it with each one of these strings. So I make an L, go around the floater, tie a half hitch knot, put my string back where it was, and pull that knot up. Here's still my floater, so I'm going to go to string number 2, which has the beads on it. Okay, technically the floater is number 1, but now I'm counting over from the side here. So now I'm going to make an L with my string, go around the floater and through, pull all those beads through, pull that knot up, and here's my floater. I'm going to go to the 3rd string, make an L, go around the floater, bring that knot all the way to the top. Here's my floater. Go to the next string, half hitch knot by making an L, going around the floater, pull that up. Here's my floater. Go to the next string, go around the floater, and I do that all the way across. This is my floater, so now I'm going to make an L. This is my other string with beads on it, so I'm going to make an L, go around the floater, pull that through and all the beads through, and then I've got my last string here. It's going to make the half hitch around the floater. Pull it up, and what you're going to see is that I made that floater kind of go diagonally across all these strings, and as I tighten those knots up, it makes this nice little diagonal line of half hitch knots all the way across, which is kind of cool. And that's the pattern that's on my belt. Now we're going to make a square knot right over here. Okay, so my floater is now over on this side, and in a minute it's going to float back over. But we're going to leave it up over here for now, and I'm going to be working with not this outside string, but the next 4 strings. Okay, so before I do that, I'm going to pull one bead up here, and one bead up here. Okay, so now we're going to use these 4 strings, and we're going to make a square knot. So a square knot is basically tying a knot around these 2 center strings. So this is going to go over the center 2 strings. I'm going to just move all these out of the way, and it's going to go under this outside one. Then the outside one is going to go under and through this little L. So I just tied a knot around those 2 strings, and I pull it up. Now I'm going to tie a second knot around the strings. This one is going to return back over here. They're going to switch places again. So this one now is going to go under these 2 strings and over this one. And this one on the outside is going to go over these 2 strings and through this little L. I've got to get all those beads through there. And then I pull that up, and there is my square knot. And it kind of pulls all the way up into that little area there. I'm going to get all my strings laid back out where they were. And now we're going to use this little floater string, and it's going to float back across, and we're going to tie half hitch knots to it as it goes back over to where it started. Okay, so I'm going to take these 7 strings and each tie a half hitch around this. Okay, it's exactly the same thing. I've got an L, and I go through the L, and I pull my string right back where it was before. Make my knot up here. Go to the second one. Stays my floater the whole time. Make an L. Go around the string. Pull it back down where it was. Put my knot up high. This is my floater. Make an L. Go around. Pull the knot up high. There's my floater. Go to the next string. Make an L. Go through and around that floater. Then I go to the next string and I go all the way across. Okay, so now I'm going to do this bead string. Before I do that, I'm going to pull one of my beads up there for decoration. Now I'm going to tie that half hitch around the floater. Make an L, go around the floater, and the last one. Around the floater. There. That floater now, when I pull those strings tight, has come back all the way to where it started, and I have this little design here. So now I'm going to make a square knot with these 4 cords. I'm going to move this outside one out of the way. I'm going to do a square knot here. Before I do that, I'm going to pull 1 bead up here and 1 bead up here for decoration. And I'm going to make my square knot with these 4 cords. Okay, so I'm going to kind of set these to the side so they're not in the way. I'm tying these 2 cords around this one. So I'm going to go over these 2 and under the outside one. Then this one's going to go under these 2 and through this L loop. And when I tighten that up, oops, I gotta get the beads through. When I tighten that up, that's going to be 1/2 of my square knot. So now I'm going to return these, and now this one, instead of going over, is going to go under and over the 4th string. The 4th string is going to go over these 2 center ones and through the L loop. And then when I pull it up, I have to kind of hold these 2 center strings, pull it up, there's my square knot. Okay, so before I go on, I'm going to pull 1 more bead up here, and now I see that we're repeating this pattern now. And we're going to do the exact same thing again. We're going to bring my floater down and do half hitch knots all the way across, and I'm going to repeat this full pattern over and over until my belt is long enough. So you follow along. The key is keeping your strings straight and following the pattern. So let's do another round of this pattern. So we're going to use our floater, and it's going to come back across, and we're going to do our half hitch with each of these strings. So we're going to make another diagonal like this. So we go around the floater and back through the L with each of these strings. Always putting my string back where I got it from before. Around the floater. Pull my knot up. The hardest string to always do is the one with the beads on it. So that bead stays up there. So we're going to go around, all the beads through. Got some tag-alongs there. And then the last one. Okay. So now as I pull up all of those knots, can you see that diagonal line? And now my floater is on this side. Now as you need to, you can let out some string here from your little balls. Now I push one of the beads up from each string, and then I'm going to tie my square knot with these 4 strings. I'm repeating this pattern. So I'm going to move these out of the way and just work with these. And we're tying the knot around the center 2 with these 2 strings. So this one's going to go over the center strings and under that 4th string. Then the 4th string is going to go under those 2 center strings and up through that little L loop. Pull it up tight, holding these 2 strings down. And that's the top part of my square knot. Now I'm going to repeat that, but this time this string is going to go under the center 2, over this one. I'll leave that little L. This one's going to go over these inside 2 and through that little L. Come on, little bead. Okay, then I'm going to hold those 2 center ones, pull this up, and there's my full square knot. I'm going to bring one more decorative bead up. And now my floater is going to come back down. And we're going to do half knots, half hitch knots back as it travels across diagonally this way. Make sure all of those are kind of tightened up there. There we go. Okay, here's my floater. Around the floater, pull that knot up. We can always keep our eye on where that floater is. Around the floater and through, bringing all those beads with us. Pull that knot up. Next string. Around the floater and through. Pull the knot up. And this one is our last one to go around the floater. And now we have that floater back out on this side, and we tighten all those knots up so you can see the diagonal line coming back down through this side. And there's my square knot in the middle. All right, so now before I finish this set of patterns, I've got it back and forth here, back and forth here. The last thing I do is tie my square knot, not with the outside one, but with the next 4. I'm going to bring up a bead on each side there for decoration. And now, using these 4, I'll tie my square knot. Goes over the center 2 strings, under the outside one. The outside one goes under the center 2 and through the little L loop. Tie it up tight while I hold those 2. Now this one's going to go under the 2 center ones, over the 4th string. The 4th string will go over those 2 and through the little L. And when I tighten it up, there's my square knot. And I bring one more bead up. And there I've completed my second round of my pattern. Over, down with 2 square knots. Over, down with 2 square knots. And I will repeat this same pattern now over and over until my belt is long enough. I'm not going to show you that entire process. I'm going to do a few of these myself, and then I'll come back and show you how to end the belt. So I have ended my belt with a square knot and putting the beads up here in my pattern. And I am approximately the same length as the other belt that I've made earlier. So I'm going to be tying this overhand knot in the end to hold it together with all of these strands. So I'm going to just take all of this in my hand, make a loop, and then pull all of these through the loop, which is going to take a little bit of work. I might just do it one at a time here, actually. See if I can do them one at a time. Okay, there's all 8 of them. I pulled them through that loop. And I'm going to tighten that loop up, and then we've got the end of our belt. There's the end of my belt. I'm going to unclamp this from the board. And you can see on both ends of this belt, I have 3 beads on each strand. And that's what I'm going to do on this belt as well. I'm going to cut the ends of these off before I do anything else. And I have about 10 inches. So I'm going to cut these off at about 10 inches as well. Put a little piece of tape on them so that I can get the beads on the end of here. Just put arbitrary colors, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to tie a knot in the end so they don't come undone. There we go, there's one done. These beads are just beautiful colors. I just love them. I did take out a bright orange color. I did not use that one. It felt just too bright compared to the others. Okay, on the strands that already have beads on them, I'm going to leave 3 beads on the strand. 1, 2, 3. Measure down and just cut the end off and tie it. I don't need to add beads to those, of course. Take those extra beads off, put them back in the bowl. Okay, this finishes off this end of the belt. I'm going to turn around to the other end, and I'm going to clip each of these ends, put 3 beads on, and tie a knot there as well. The Learn How to Make an Easy Macrame Belt is a kickback to the 70s. It's groovy. The free pattern and tutorial make it easy for you to create a belt to tie through the belt loops of your bell bottoms. For more crafts and retro fun, come on over to welcometananas.com and join the fun.